it up. Front row, middle. Dave?
Ryan, other than scoring points, offensively, when you look at the metrics, what's like the most important stat, like in your mind? Is it yards per play? Just what's the most important stat that you look at?
There's not just one, but I do think first downs is really important because that means if you believe in the plan to win, which is the field position game, which is more important in the bigger games you get into, then I think that matters because if you get the more first downs, you're tilting the field to your advantage. But then I also think scoring in the red zone, if you believe in the field position game, when you get into the red zone, you have to score touchdowns. It can't just be field goals. So I think when you combine those things, then everything else comes into play, yardage, points per game. But if you don't have a lot of first downs, you don't score touchdowns in the red zone, you're going to have problems. So.
All right, Tim?
Yeah, Ryan, when you lay your head down on the pillow in the Blackwell the night before a game, home game like this, especially this week, what would keep you up at night still, and what makes you feel comfortable about this team? So far, it's a two-part question.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing that keeps you up is making sure that our guys and our team understand the opportunity that they have. And I mentioned this before. As you get older in life, you realize that time waits for no one, and opportunities come around like this, every so often, but only a few times in your life. And that maybe when you're young, sometimes you think that they're going to always be around, or this is something that's normal, and it's not. And so making sure that our team understands that, grabbing on a hold of that, not letting go, and making sure that we show up every Saturday and play as hard as we can and prepare. Those are the things that you think about. What allows you to sleep, I guess, the second part of your question would just be the leadership in this team and the way that we practice. Because, we believe that the way that you practice during the week is how you're going to play. And so I thought we've had a better day of practice yesterday than we've had in a long time. Guys were sharp. Guys were on it. It was a good practice, and that allows you to fall asleep after twisting and turning a few times.
Second row, middle-ish. Tony?
Ryan, all of these new games that you're having, what kind of impact does that have on recruiting and bringing guys in for visits? How much more difficult does it make it, or what are the challenges?
Well, if someone doesn't have a bye week or is playing on a Friday night game, it's hard to get them in if they live a little further away for a noon game. If it's a night game, then it's a little easier. But for local schools and schools from Ohio and the recruits from Ohio, they're able to get here within a 3-4 hour radius of school. They can kind of get here for a noon game, which is good. But for the guys who live a little further away, it's a little bit harder to get here.
Do you think the noon games are going to pose a bit of an issue moving forward if Fox, say, continues to do this? Is that not something maybe you'd want to see? Like, would you prefer more 3:30s or?
That's not something that I really think about all that much. Although I do enjoy the noon game. I love getting up and playing the game, and then hopefully, like we talked about yesterday, going home and enjoying it for the afternoon.
Third row left. Bruce?
Ryan, back to Tim's question a bit. You talked about, and you have referred before to this team recognizing what's possible. And I wonder, when did you become satisfied that was something that was okay to talk about this team with? Or is that because it's Ohio State, that's August is fine? Or did you have to see something, an intangible, a victory margin against a certain kind of a team? When did you deem that it's okay for you to sort of publicly acknowledge that in front of them and start referring to that for a motivational reason?
Well, we looked at the calendar and the schedule. We had that first part, those 6 games. We said we're going to come up for air, have a 2-game season. Then we had the bye week, and then we're going to have the home stretch. And so the goal was to be undefeated at this point, to be 8-0, and we are now. So as you sit there and you talk to young men, you say, hey, listen, here's where we are, here's where we want to go. And you talk about what the stretch run means. And you talk about that during the bye week. But once we got back here on Sunday, it was all about Maryland. And it was all about the day, winning the day, making sure we have a great practice, making sure we beat Maryland on Saturday. That's it. That's all that matters. And you start getting ahead of yourself that way, I think you set yourself up. But I do think during that bye week was a great opportunity for us to take a picture to see where we're headed with this thing. Because I think it's important to know where you've been, where you are, and where you're headed.
Was it more so that it was Wisconsin, or that it was 8-0, or that it was like you're number 1 in the poll, or
Just the fact that we had a bye week. Yeah.
Right next door. Steve?
Yeah, Coach, going back to the Wisconsin game, it appeared they came very close twice to blocking the punt, and then they got it on the third time. Just curious internally, what's the discussion during a game as to we've got to shore this up, or we've got
Yeah.
Is that going to become an issue, you think, going forward with, in a quote competitive game in the fourth quarter that can get you beat?
Oh yeah, absolutely get us beat. It could have got us beat last Saturday. So completely unacceptable. The whole thing was ridiculous. We're getting it fixed. It's going to be fixed. It was a block spot issue, and it was several people were at fault, and it's not going to happen again. We're not going to let that happen again. If it does, then we got to figure out again what the issue was. But certainly that is not going to win us any games, and that was something that we were very embarrassed about as a staff, as a team. Was the fact to get a punt block like that is completely unacceptable. So I think everybody understood that, and we're going to get it fixed. We did a good job in the bye week of addressing it, and we're doing a good job this week of getting it addressed. And now we got to go put it on the field.
Do you feel, as a head coach, you have an environment where, I don't say anybody's low on the totem pole, but the quality control guy can speak up and say, hey, we gotta do something here. Do you have that environment, you feel, in your program? I mean, you're rolling along at 9-0 and status quo is going pretty good right now, but is that there for your guys lower on that totem pole to speak up?
I think that if it's well thought out, yeah. I mean, everybody, builds respect. Just like any other job. That when people speak up in a group setting, we have a lot of different meetings that we have. We have staff meetings, we have team meetings, we have offensive meetings, defensive meetings, special teams meetings, and when people think things through and bring up good points, then they get some respect and people listen. Then there's other times where people say things and they haven't really thought it all the way through, and you just kind of look at them sideways, and they don't get as much attention. And that's just that's life, though. And so we have a lot of bright people here, a lot of people who have a lot invested here, and it's a group effort. And the more input we can take, we want to listen to people and have. There's a lot of good ideas out there, and then it's the leader's job to make sure that we filter out those ideas and figure out what we're going to do. And so, but certainly love ideas and want guys who are creative in the program.
Far left, Lori.
Coach, I heard you say a few minutes ago that games get bigger and bigger. How tough is it to convey to 20-year-old guys both the idea that every game should be approached the same, on the one hand, and on the other hand, that some games have higher stakes than others, and sometimes the years are more crucial than others?
That's not easy to do, but I think it's the approach of understanding that every game, if you lose one of them, they all mean the same. So as you look at each individual game, they all count the same. So now how you approach the game based on what you're seeing, the game plan, all the different things that come into it. There's just a lot of variables, night games, day games, rain, all those things. The style of offense, the style of defense, the style of special teams, and you just adapt each week. But, you got 12 games in a regular season, and they all count the same. So you have to approach each game getting yourself mentally, physically, and emotionally ready to play in that game. And so far we've done that, but we have to continue to do that, and that is not easy. And that's the job, again, of the leaders and the coaches to make sure that we show up again on Saturday with those same things in mind.
Real quick, Justin said that you told him and JK that this offense hasn't played close to its potential, or that was your message to them?
Yep.
Is that really how you feel about the offense right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that we can do so much better in so many areas, and we've only just scratched the potential of what this offense can be. And when you get to this point of the year, your effort and your execution has to be at an all-time high, and that's something we've talked about all week. And I think that if the guys take that same approach, then they stay hungry and they stay with the mindset that they have something to prove. And it's not just talk, though. I mean, when you watch the film, there's so many things we can improve on. We can be better. And when you look at it through those lenses, I think you continue to stay hungry, and I think that's critical.
Front row left, Nathan.
When you were having the real substantive conversations about whether Justin was going to come here with him, was there any kind of an intellectual connection that happened with you and him, and what was that? And is that important as you're bringing in a quarterback?
Yeah, it was hard because it was not the typical recruiting deal. So there was not a lot of time to build that relationship. A lot of it was, I wouldn't say risk, but it was just one of those things, a little bit of a leap of faith on both of our sides. And then as we got to know each other more and more, we connected. And, I think that relationship's building every day.
He obviously has a lot of athletic talents, but what ways have you seen his intellectual skills play into the success he's having this year?
He's very intelligent. He can handle a lot of information. He does a good job of putting it on the field in a short period of time. And it comes that part of it. He comes pretty easy to him. But at this time of the year, we're going against some really good, smart defensive coordinators who have really good schemes. And now that we've put different things on film, we're going to see some things that are going to challenge us and him. So he's got to be on his game more than ever.
Front row middle, Joey.
When Jonah Jackson went into the transfer portal back in January at Rutgers, you guys were on him pretty quickly. Was it you or anyone on your staff who had noticed him previously before that gave you an inkling that he could be a plug-and-play guy right away this year?
Yeah, called Chris Ash right away when he became available, and Chris had nothing but unbelievable things to say about Jonah. And Chris was here, and got to know Chris as time went on. And so when he kind of gave a recommendation for Jonah, that was enough for us. And then also watched his film, talked to our guys. Our guys played against him, and thought that on film he was really talented. But then hearing the character reference that we got from Chris was excellent, and he's been nothing but unbelievable with us. He stepped into that room. He's a pro. He brings a certain level of maturity and just stability to that line week in and week out. And I can't say enough about what he's done since he's been here.
What did your D-lineman say about facing him?
That he was one of the better guys that they've gone against within the league. As an interior guy, he was strong and powerful in the run game and did a good job in pass protection.
Right next door, Bill.
I was on a conference call yesterday with Kirk Herbstreit, and he mentioned that when he spoke to the team at your invitation in the spring, he just was really impressed by the maturity, even when he shook your guys' hands, that he could tell there was a seriousness, a purpose. And that maturity, I would assume, really needs to come through these next few weeks, especially next week, Rutgers this week. How impressed or what impression has it made on you that your team has kind of handled things the way that it has in terms of maturity?
Yeah, the story still has a long way to be written, and so don't really want to get into all that until after the season, when you look back and see where things are at. But there is that seriousness right now that we're into November, we're relevant, and there's no time for silliness right now. And that's someone asked me that the other day. That's part of having fun, is winning games in November, and these are a lot of consequences for these games, and I think the guys understand that, and that's cool to see. So what does that mean? We'll find out.
And last questions. Front row right, Austin.
Ryan, it's pretty rare to see Jonathan Cooper without a smile on his face, but the last couple times I've seen him, he looked pretty frustrated. This hasn't gone the way he wanted this year. Have you had more conversations with him, or you sense that frustration with what he's been going through?
What a special young man, Coop is, and certainly hasn't got on the field the way he's wanted to this year, like you're saying. But he continues to be a really good captain, a really good teammate. He's encouraging to his teammates, even though he's dying to get on the field. And so we're all supporting him and helping him along the way, and we look forward to seeing him back on the field here real soon.
Great. Coach, thank you very much.
Hey, Ryan.